Welcome to another episode of Angels, Positivity, and Love. Amazing guests, incredible insights. Today, again, no exception, Stephanie James, filmmaker, author, healer, psychotherapist, going to be doing a lot more in the future for a lot more people, I can tell you that. Colorado, she joins us today on the show. I'd like to welcome Stephanie to Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Michael, such a joy to be here with you. Thank you.
Can you tell us an experience that either helped put you onto this path as a psychotherapist, as an author, a filmmaker, healer, or that in the middle of all this, it helped propel you further along your path?
Yeah, I would say the first for me real opening, huge opening, I would say, um, on my path happened a long time ago. My goodness, I think I was probably 25 years old. And it was one of the times where I had this internal guidance, as you say, we have this inner GPS, and it's when the divine speaks to us. And this was no exception. And I was in Vail, Colorado with 14. There were 14 of us, childhood friends, people I worked with. We were having this tremendous time up skiing, drinking margaritas at the top of the mountain, and just have, this incredible time. And on the third night, as we got ready to go to bed, I was sharing a room with one of my friends. And as we're getting ready to get into bed, I just started crying. And she said, "What's going on? We've been having this amazing time. What are these tears about?" And I was living in Denver at the time. And I said to her, "I don't know what this is, but I just have this direct, very strong feeling, this very strong knowingness. I have to move back to Fort Collins, which is about 60 miles north of Denver, where I grew up." And she said, "Why would you want to do that?" She said, "You have all these amazing friends." At the time, it was before graduate school, and I was the only non-mastered level person on the therapy team. And she said, "This is such an honor. You're working with all these people." I said, "I know, I hear everything you're saying, and it's very strong. I have to go back home." Now, you need to know, I'm not a person that remembers a lot of dates, but I'll always remember this because it was the 14th of January. And when I called my mother the next morning, my lease on my apartment was going to come due February 1st. And so I thought, oh, I won't sign a new lease. I can go back to work, give them 2 weeks notice, and go home. I didn't have a place to live, but I thought, I don't care. I've got to go home. Well, when I called my mother that Sunday, she said to me, "Well, this works out perfectly. We have a renter. They own several homes here in Fort Collins, and his lease is up February 1st. So you can just move in then." And so I did it. I mean, I went, I gave my 2 weeks notice, had goodbye parties with my girlfriends there. And as a single mom, moved my daughter and I back to Fort Collins. And within just a few days, had a job. Things felt, very secure. And 3 weeks to the day that I came home, the adolescent unit that I worked on closed, never to reopen. That all of my amazing, wonderful girlfriends were laid off. I worked with several just wonderful girlfriends. And what had happened is that at the time, this is before managed healthcare, and we had scouts that were going out across the country getting children that needed to come on the unit, but they were getting kickbacks, like $5,000 kickbacks for bringing those children. So that's illegal. And so front page of the newspaper, psychiatric abuses charged on I think it was front of the Rocky Mountain News. And so that whole unit closed down. And as a single mom, having signed a brand new lease when I was at the time living on $50 a week, when all my groceries, everything was paid, I had $50 for groceries. I couldn't have made it. I don't know what I would have done. And so listening to that still inner voice and acting. It's not just hearing it, it's that secondary piece of acting that's been so powerful in my life.
Oh, okay. Let's jump to the concept of, let's go down a little box list, checklist, and just say yes or no. Do angels exist, Stephanie?
Yes.
Okay. How about energy? And can we see energy physically around us if we really let go, if we really allow, if we get out of thinking? Can we see energy?
Absolutely.
Okay. Last thing, can you talk to us about thought form structure, how we could go a whole lifetime being up here and not really take a breath, slow down, enjoy the trees, enjoy the sunset as the metaphors go. Can you talk to us about, is there a lot of structure up here when we're doing adulting? Yes or no on that?
Absolutely, yes.
Okay, now for you, you've got this incredible ability. You've been using it at the societal level to help people slow down, get out of thought form structure, and to breathe more, live more, allow more. Can you talk to us about how it's been even evolving for you all along, appreciating more, how big the universe is, how it's almost energy flows?
Yeah, I mean, I think that, gosh, in order to answer your question, I think it's part of it is tapping into that energy that is us. It's always flowing through us, that divine energy that flows through us as us. And so it's that divine spark that's within us. And I think sometimes what can happen is some of, situations, circumstances can get in the way of that beautiful conduit. Like you were just saying, thought forms and different things that get in the way. And so our work is how do we clear out those cobwebs, whether they're that energetic cobwebs or thought form cobwebs. And so we have the power to do that. It's always available to us in the present moment right now. Um, I hope that's answering your question.
Totally. What about your film? What about your first book? Tell us about your next book or the next two. What can you share about how this is all tied into your works?
Yeah, well, and kind of going with that thing of, when you feel and you're aware of that energy, when you know that it's that divine guidance, to continue to listen. And honestly, part of it's continuing to ask. I think we get afraid to ask for what we want. And I'll just share another very brief story with you because it's how all of this came to be. A little over 6 years ago, I'm sitting in my therapy office with the door cracked open. I didn't have any clients. And I was thinking, how do I get back on the radio? Like I had been a guest on a radio show and I loved it so much. And it was so fun. And I'd done a few episodes with this woman out of Colorado here. And it wasn't 3 minutes later that there's this knock on my door. And this gentleman comes in and he knew me through a mutual friend. And he said, I have to tell you, I work at the local radio station here. And I was just wondering if you'd ever thought of doing your own show. And he said, I about came out of my chair. I was so excited. I was just like clapping, I was like, oh my God, yes. And so I went ahead and I did all the training. I did all the, CDC training, all the things I needed to do, the FCC, excuse me, training. I started this radio show and podcast. And from there, I kept being open to the signs. And that's literally how all of this came through. To me, it's opening to that. It's divine guidance that's always available to us. That's all I can tell you. We get caught in thinking, oh, well, someone else can do it. Or, I've got these difficulties in my life, so I'm not a clear channel. And it's never apart from us. So we only have to tap into it. And, through meditation, a couple years later, so this has been a little over 4 years ago, I was meditating, got done with the meditation, and again, clear drop in. I mean, and I really hear this stuff, like I'll hear voices, like a very clear, distinct voice. And it was literally, some of the most brilliant minds and serving hearts on the planet through my radio show and podcast. And you need to bring them together and create a film. And Michael, at the time, I had 67 cents in my savings account.
Wow.
Like no way could I create a film, if I would have been thinking just with my logical mind. And instead, again, I listened to that calling in my heart. And it was serendipitous. Once I was in alignment, like, yes, I'm going to do this. I spoke with Jacob Israel Lieberman, who you will see in my film, who I'd had on the show several times. And he just guided me. He said, talk to this person. I went down to Santa Fe to visit a very good friend, Misa Hopkins, and her husband. And he goes, oh, You're going to Santa Fe. Well, get a hold of Larry Dossey, the amazing Larry Dossey and his wife, and get a hold of George and Sedina Caponelli, who are amazing television and film producers. And as I emailed these people, their immediate response was, yes, yes, let's have dinner, let's have breakfast. And so I met these people who are now part of my soul family, who are these people are my deepest, closest friends. In everyone, as we were having these conversations, and I was saying, I want to make a film that's about the difficulties that we face that then become the match point, that are ignited within us, that become our gift to the world. And everyone said yes. And these people came for free. I paid for their lodging and their food, but these are people that make tens of thousands of dollars to come and speak. And so this beautiful experience was created. And unlike other events, what we ended up filming was not only these beautiful one-on-one conversations, but also this beautiful alchemy that was created between, there were 12 of us all together. Steve Behrman, who co-authored Spontaneous Evolution with Bruce Lipton and his wife, George and Sedina Caponelli, Barb and Larry Dossey, Gabrielle and Solomon Masala, Jacob Lieberman, and Stefan Schwartz. These amazing people that have done huge transformation and enacted amazing change in our world came together, and we meditated and we prayed and we danced together and created something that's very unusual, unlike any experience, I think, in a documentary.
Can you give us the title? It should be When Sparks Ignite, and also the rest
It
of
is.
the marketing bit, like when it came out. Give us the details on the actual film, if you could.
Sure. When Sparks Ignite. It's still playing on Plex Network on the More You channel. And in December was picked up by Steve Farrell and Donald Neale Walsh's Humanities Stream. So if you go to Humanities Team, it's on Humanities Stream Plus. And yeah, When Sparks Ignite.
Awesome. Okay, keep going on the film.
Well, yeah. So the cool thing about it was the second day, as an audience, you get to watch as being like, they say flies on the wall. And we were all sitting around a round table. We called it Lights of the Round Table. And we were talking about some of the most, incredible things of our lives, not just the hard, the beginning of the film is kind of individual interviews where you're hearing some of the hardships and things that all of us have faced, no matter how, quote unquote, enlightened you are, or what books or films or whatever you've done. We all are human, and we're going through this human experience, which sometimes involves pain or struggle. What we move towards, though, in that Lights of the Round Table is this beautiful, like, how do you take the long view? Why is it so essential? Like on the film poster, it says, your period healing period matters, period. And how each one of us, as we do that work, we become the conduits for more healing, more light to come into the world. And Stephanie Schwartz just brings that home so beautifully in that part where we can be part of that 10%. That's all it takes. It's not 51% to be the tipping point, but 10% as we begin to do our work, we are creating that change that we want to see in the world. We're helping to raise that vibration. I think we're going to really start seeing that, higher levels of consciousness manifesting in the beautiful things that happen in our world.
And this is the Schwartz from, I believe, Arizona, consciousness researcher, if I'm getting it right, who's been around for, literally maybe 40 years.
Oh, yeah. So Stephanie Schwartz, he now he lives, off of Puget Sound, but he is the one. With remote viewing,
Yeah.
and he's been on episodes with Carl Sagan, Deep Quest, on his submarine, and has done amazing. He did military reform in the 70s. He's really been a part of some huge social change, and he just shares some beautiful things around his life and his own awakening.
Nice. Okay, we're going to go on another tangent. I do this usually much later in the show. I'm going to light some sage. Everyone at home can catch this. It doesn't matter. There is no time. Part of our discussion before today's show. Just give yourself permission to smell some lit sage. I better start lighting. And I've got a red-tailed hawk feather here to blow some sage through two screens. It doesn't matter if you're in India right now, Australia, Canada, it's 2025, 2028. When you're in thinking, there's time. When you're in your heart, there's no time. You're just flowing. So go with the flow, catch a little sage, but why settle for the linear when you can have flowers too? And Stephanie, in Colorado, what are you catching right now? A little whiff of sage?
A little sage, maybe a little sweetgrass.
Ooh, nice. And I actually have a touch of cedar. I think there's some cedar pieces that snuck in there.
Oh, cool.
But again, you can let the universe, angels, bring you extra smells for folks at home. Just getting that fire going a little. And folks can play this back, no big deal. All right, I'm gonna snub this out. Okay, what would you say are some of your takeaways if we did a stop, drop, and roll right now in life? You were forced to explain what you think you've learned. To sum it up simplistically, what are some takeaways for Stephanie James right now in life after all the decades of, ebb and flow, a lot of fun, this and that? What are some reminders for folks out there?
One of the first things that came through when you said that is love, and how many different channels have tried to show us, like the Beatles, love is all you need, or, I feel like, at times when we get distracted and we're so busy in our lives, we forget that love really, that's our breath. That's when we connect to that part of ourselves. It can transform any situation. You earlier when we were chatting before this, and you'd say breathe, we were having this talk and talking about certain angels and letting that energy come in. And it's so interesting how I'll hold my breath. And, by breathing, like we allow the love of whether it's that angel or whoever that is to come into our hearts. And it resonates because that's what we are. We are love. And so as we bring that breath into our heart space, then we can start bringing it to every encounter, and knowing, one of the things when I'm sitting with a client, I remind myself that we have these mirror neurons. And so if the client starts getting really anxious, telling a story, or even I've had clients have anxiety, or panic attacks in the office, it's my breath that brings me back to center and back into my heart. So I can be in that space of love and really hold them. And then it helps to transform their experience. So they're able to come into their own hearts and their own healing and wholeness. So I think, it sounds so simplistic, but one of the huge driving forces of my life is that love is the answer. And, I get the comment so much like, you live with so much joy, you have, that's why my brand is the spark. The spark is that essence that is us, that's never extinguished. And I believe that is because that little girl that I was, that I'm writing about, interestingly, in my new book, that had this knowingness that like we're never born and we never die, that energy just continues on and on. That is the spark of love. That's it. So I would say that's probably my biggest thing to share.
Okay, so we're not alone. Love is everywhere. How do we bring it in on a practical level daily? Because, we get busy, we're thinking a lot. There's this situation, my problem is this drama, it happened to me. How do we flip that pancake to take advantage of what we think are our obstacles?
Yeah, and great point what you just said there, Michael. What we think are our obstacles, because so often it's just our limiting beliefs, right? It's really, I talk about heaven and hell are really states of being in between our ears. And so it's part of it is letting go of the distractions. In very practical terms, it means turning off your phone, shutting down the TV, getting off of your computer and being in nature, taking time to commune. Because if you're, standing there with the sun and the trees or your feet in the grass, you can't help but feel that connectedness. We're resonant with those things. And I do think, just practicing getting out of your mind. Like you keep saying, it's like we can, through our breath, practice coming into our hearts. It only takes a moment. This isn't like something that is difficult. We make it difficult. But as we do that, what we do is we learn, oh, I don't have to believe every thought that pops into my head. A great scientist, research scientist, neuropsychologist, Dan Siegel talks about this in his meditation, The Wheel of Awareness. When he has you at one part of that meditation, think about your thoughts. So literally what you're doing is you're becoming the observer of your thoughts and realizing, oh, do they appear from left to right? Do they come from front to back? Do they just kind of pop in like popcorn? And we start realizing how interesting. We are not our thoughts. Thoughts flow through us, just like clouds in the sky. So I think the more we can let go of our thoughts being, quote unquote, the big T truth, and just practicing, having a present moment practice. Because you're right, we get busy, we get distracted, and we have to do tasks, but we can start living more and more in this present moment awareness. This is the whole thing. We hear these old stories, the wise sage saying, chop wood, carry water, which means be present with what you're doing. Breathe into the present moment of what you're doing. And honestly, I feel like that is our source of freedom. That's how we drop out of our heads.
It's so funny because for me, chop wood, carry water is thinking. And you have an epiphany. You're good for the epiphany for an hour, a day, a year, and then you're back to chopping wood, carrying water, paying the bills, and back to being up here. But I agree with you, it can absolutely be the other way as well. So before the show, and this will be my chicken scratch, I can write like nice and neat, but I was scribbling, you are not your thoughts. Peaceful Warrior mentions it in the movie. I had two contradictory statements and why this isn't about words. Yoda says no try, but Archangel Gabriel says always try. They're both correct. And then you are not your thoughts, and you are your thoughts. You're not your thoughts is a quote right out of the movie Peaceful Warrior. I think at the bar with Nick Nolte talking to Scott Micklewitz. How is this possible that it's not about words? It's more about where are you flowing out of, up here, down here. Can you discuss that dynamic in a different way for us to kind of cover that ground again?
Well, part of what I'm hearing when you say that is that when we're oftentimes caught in our thought constructs, we can really get caught into limited thinking. And so that if you think of that, that's where we can get very in touch. Our brain connects us as we imagine something. Our brain holds it as being real and happening right now. So that's why we can play the what if game and worry about something in the future. And then we have that physiological response. That's all happening up here in our head. And then we start getting the released chemicals of, cortisol or adrenaline. And so that thing is not happening now, but we experience it as now. Same thing is true if we're ruminating about the past. We start feeling sad or we feel regret or we feel guilt. Not happening now. So, and again, we're having that physiological response as if it is. So our thinking can serve us. When you speak of that duality, yes, our thinking can serve us because we can bring ourselves back to this moment and say, what do I want to think about instead? And as you know, when we pull up a memory or something that is something that's like joyful or makes us just feel like, oh, that connectedness, then we can guide our thoughts to actually really serving us. And when we do that, then we start getting the beautiful chemical releases of joy and happiness and expansiveness. So those are the two dualities as we drop out of our head again into our heart space and just breathe into that space. That is that freedom, because in that place, it's abundance. In that place, there's no lack. You can't be in lack and in abundance at the same time. So that's why those kind of simple exercises are so important.
So you can't take an amazing hot shower and be ticked off at this exact same moment. It's either or. You can't split the baby. How do you ask the universe? Or let's discuss first, what is the universe? And, this isn't one of those eternal questions, and we're not on a PBS show about the world, the universe, cosmos with Carl Sagan, but let's try. How big is the universe? Angels exist. Aren't there like universal forces in place the second we are going to allow for this to get extra help for anything? But can you discuss some of those dynamics as either you've experienced them or how you explain it to others?
Sure. I mean, what a powerful question, right? And I can only say through my own experience, and I truly do believe, I mean, we know such a small fraction of the universe, that it's never ending and all expansive. And I know that there's moments when I've been doing work, like when I was following for a while, one of my nightly meditations was actually a Joe Dispenza meditation, where he invites you to come up through the pineal gland, in through the third eye. And then it's like you're just going up, 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 like out of your body, seeing yourself in your bed, and then seeing yourself above your ceiling, and then above the house, and then above the neighborhood. You keep going up into the universe until it's total expansion. Um, and I feel like that was such a powerful image for me. And I've had those moments too, where, and I do think, I mean, whatever this is, it's this infinite intelligence, and it is here to support us, and again, it doesn't leave. I think personally, we get distracted, or we've heard a message that says, not us. Somehow we're not in touch with our worthiness, or we're not in touch with our own divinity. So we miss it. But it's always available to us. So what's beautiful about that is that we can create these amazing things, even things we didn't realize were possible.
Okay, now with Joe, going to mention to the audience, if you weren't aware, I think it was a triathlon or something. He was on a 10 speed in the middle of a race, and he was at a corner. I think a Jeep hit him, and I mean, he could have easily died. It was going at speed, and he had a lot of damage to his back. They were talking hardcore surgery and everything else, and he took a chance with the power of the mind, intention, letting the universe do its job for healing. Always follow your doctor's advice, take your medication, blah, blah, blah. But at that point, he let natural healing, I believe, take place, and it was pretty miraculous. It's documented. But going back to his current day practice, I believe he's super steeped in science, evidence-based research, and the rest. So rest assured, you're getting it at one level if you go to a week-long hotel retreat that he does. Pretty incredible stuff. We had Amy Stark on twice in 2023 talking about a lot of his principles, but she had also gone to one of his retreats and I think detailed it in her second appearance. I did want to mention, though, that he is super plugged into above. Doesn't really put his cards on the table that way and say, hey, this is how the universe is in the broadest sense, with like light beings and angels and everything else. He keeps it real for the folks and very science-based. But in my view, he's from both worlds, science and non-science, and helping people quite a bit. Okay, so with that, you're also straddling two worlds, psychotherapist, but also basically a healer, and doing a lot more, if you don't mind me speculating, down the road. Can you talk to us about your personal path of accepting a broader reality than what you've even experienced as a psychotherapist, how you've been helping people, how you are starting to get a sense for how it's going to be unfolding in the future? I hope that made sense.
Yeah, it did. Thank you. What's so interesting as you talk about like Joe, and I want to just mention one thing before I answer your question, because in the beginning of Joe's book called Supernatural, he addresses that piece. He said, I even hesitated using the word supernatural because he said people connect it to woo woo, and they think, but he said these things that we can experience, and quantum physics is proving now about our interconnectedness and all these different things. He said that's the only way. It's not just the natural world, it's supernatural. And so, I've been a devout studier and seeker my whole life. I really have been. And I share in my last book, Becoming Fierce, this story of my daughter at 4 years old, who, upon walking into the bathroom and finding me crying because I had just gotten off the phone with my mother and found out that my aunt, who had had breast cancer, it had spread through her entire body. And so she was, they didn't give her very long to live. In a nutshell, my daughter sat down and she said, why are you crying, Mama? And I said, well, because, Mama just doesn't ever want anyone to die. And she says, but we never die, Mom. And I thought, well, she's just saying that, and even though we didn't go to church or talk about heaven or God, I said, well, yeah, I know, sweetheart, we go to heaven. And she just smiles and looks at me and she was like, Mama, there's no heaven. She said, when I was a light in the sky with God, and then she paused, And then this is the part that blew my mind, Michael. And this is an important story because it is what has informed and changed my work in the world. She said, "Do you remember your other mother, Dorothy?" Now, Dorothy was the name of my grandmother that died when I was 13 years old. My daughter, Acacia, never knew her. My grandfather was married the year after to Grandma Seal. That's all she knew. I didn't have pictures of my grandmother up. We just didn't talk about her. She wasn't a part of our lives. And so she said, "Do you remember your other mother, Dorothy?" Well, God put some of her light in my light, and then I got to come down and be your daughter. And ironically, the name of this beautiful being, my daughter, is Acacia, which is the Greek word for immortality.
Mm.
It's the tree of life in Africa. So she was there to teach that. And not only that, even though her personality was not like my grandmother's, mine is much more like that, very extroverted. I don't know a stranger. My daughter's an artist, very introverted. My grandfather, as she grew up, would say, like when she was about 12 years old, is the first time my grandfather said, "She is the most like Dorothy out of all my grandkids." 26. Like he saw that light in her. So I've had this, and early on, I would hear things that I knew that this life wasn't just it. And so I guess how it informs the work that I do now, because it's very dualistic. Even on this show, this is the most I've come out. I've never made public statements and said, even though I shared that in my book, I don't think I go around saying, "Oh yeah, everybody, let's talk about your guardian angels and let's, talk about your spirit guides." Even though one-on-one in therapy, I can't tell you. I've been in 17 years in private practice, and so many people talk to me about their guardian angel and their guides and being in communication with loved ones that have passed. So much so that there's no way I could be a skeptic. There's no way I could say, "Oh, well," and I've had my own experiences. So I believe that, the way that these two I think are so important is we can do that inner work and do some of that healing, but it goes beyond that. It's not just this inner healing. I think there's a calling for us to become as light as possible, to become as high vibrating as possible, and to start speaking these things that we're talking about on this show. To quit pretending like, oh, it's those people that are a little bit on the fringe, or just these people see angels and, oh, okay, that person's a medium. I don't know how I feel about them. It's all of us. Like we all have the potential, right, to have these experiences. And I think as we allow them in, greater and greater things happen. And I have to do a shout out to my incredible meditation teacher, L. Kerr Wilson, who I've been doing pranayama breathwork meditation with for the last 3.5 years. And it has blown the doors off of my experience of being in touch with energies and things that I would have said, "Oh, come on." Even though I'd had some incredible experiences in my life, I wasn't prepared for that next level of expansion. But it's available to all of us.
Okay, we're going to go on a quick tangent, come right back to this thread because it's an important one. But how can a person just hit pause on this? Don't do that just yet, folks. And by the way, subscribe, like, comment, share. First, enjoy this. And be sure to put down a comment on what you're enjoying about Stephanie here in the show, or just what you've had as an experience. Why not? It helps others find this show, by the way, and help us grow to 1 million plus in audience, or 75 million soon. Okay, what can a person do in the shortest amount of time to go full stop, present, out of thinking, and to know that they're connecting to all there is within, externally, internally? Is it hands in water, a breathing exercise, lighting a candle? What can a person surefire? It always works. Laugh, smile. What is it?
Well, again, I have to go back to the breath. I mean, I do think that those things work. Sometimes we're driving in a car, though, and we can't, light a candle, or we can't do one of these other things that would bring us into that alignment, if you will. And so, our breath is always present. Our breath is always ready. And it does help if you can, if you're not driving. I mean, put your hand on your heart, feel that warmth, feel that resonance. A lot of times after I have people do, several deep breaths, I start with having them take deep breaths into their belly and then down to their kneecaps and then down to their toes. And then after that, rub their hands together as hard, like they're trying to make a fire between their fingers and their hands, and then just open them and breathe into their palms to receive. And it's a beautiful way of just coming into alignment, and in that moment, it takes that long. I mean, we're talking a minute or two.
So we're really getting out of our thinking into our hearts. And this is just an act of letting go that you have to trust you can do.
Yeah, it's like I think if you could think of it's something that you cultivate. You just start practicing. It's not, you might not feel it right away, but what it will do is there's power in the pause, Michael. There's so much power in the pause because we are cyclical thinkers and we get into these, like trances sometimes. And so it's a pattern interrupt. We could do a pattern interrupt to come into our body by doing tapping. If people know about like EFT tapping, I love, just opening my heart, just tapping on my heart center. I have a girlfriend, Gabriella, she's in the film, and I loved it. In the morning, we'd go out before the shooting of the film. We'd go into the park and do a little offering, and she'd have water and she'd have all the elements represented, little like you, sage for fire that we lit. And then she'd literally sing into her heart center, like just tap and be like, ah, and just bring it in. In those moments, I think you are interrupting the pattern, and it gives us space to drop in. So you start having those experiences, and it really is, I feel like the more we practice, and just practice, there's no perfection in this. So often we get caught up in like, I have to do this right. No, you just try, you just open to it, and you really do start cultivating that. And the more you do it, the more you start noticing these little synchronicities and these, oh, well, as Jacob Lieberman says, I love his quote. He says, life is always looking for you. Like, you don't have to do anything. You don't have to go be anything. It's like, no, life, that energy, that, which is connected to all of this that we're talking of, it's always looking for you. So it's just opening to it.
Okay. Can you talk to us about the relationship between like thinking, we'll call it, everything that goes on up here, not all of it's fear, but fear, worry, rejection, reacting, stress, knowing, which is most of our knowing as a collective, science and everything else, knowing that precludes possibility. And this with science because wait a week and somebody else came up with a better discovery that broadens it more, pushes the football down the field towards the end zone. But the end zone always changes too. So how do we differentiate between thinking, unlove, we could call it, unconsciousness, although some people say don't call it unconsciousness, and then consciousness, awareness, love, all there is when you're living? How do we get our heads around the whole dynamic there?
So I think part of it is embracing the fact that we, as human beings, we live in that full circle of experience. So there are going to be moments where we're profoundly sad, or we feel angry, or we feel these different emotions. I think it's such an important point that you brought up, because it's not that I'm going to live in joy in every moment. We're going to have real life happen, and real life, real life. I don't want to say that real life isn't amazing and joyful, but sometimes it's also painful, and sometimes it's scary or fearful. And so not to fear having those emotions. Or I think what we can do is we can lessen the chatter or the story connected to them by really, if we feel fear, let's use that as an example, we notice where it's at in our body. And instead of connecting to the story and going, oh my gosh, I don't know what's going to happen in the world, and there's all these things happen, and we can just get ourselves really wound up with the what if story. Again, we bring ourselves to the present moment, and you can breathe into wherever that energy center is where you're holding the fear, and you just notice it. You say, oh, is it tight? Is it dense? If it had a temperature, what temperature would it be? What color would it be? What texture might it be? And then in that moment, you can breathe into the space, connecting with whatever your higher power is, whatever that source is for you, imagining that light coming down directly into that place. And transmuting it, going in, around, and through all of those particles. So, and Rumi expressed it so beautifully, in his poem, The Guest House,
Mm.
where he's saying whatever shows up, he's speaking of emotions, a depression, a meanness, a sadness comes, meet them at the door laughing and invite them in, because each has been sent as a guide from beyond. So part of this is this beautiful alchemy, I think, that we do, where it's very rare that we get no thoughts. I mean, we can really enjoy in meditation those moments of expansiveness where you're not in your thoughts and you're experiencing the wholeness or the connection or the oneness. But we are thinking beings. So how do we really bring these into more of a beautiful marriage so that they're supporting one another? So our spiritual life, the love within us, is also helping to inform and heal those negative thoughts that do come up, because nobody gets out of childhood or life unscathed. These things are going to come up, and just to look at them. I used to love this when I first started dating my husband. If I would talk to him about something that had been a trigger, he'd go, "What a blessing." that whatever that thing was is actually a blessing, because maybe you weren't aware of it before, but you have that emotional hit that's really strong, and you go, "Oh, okay. This is something that's been brought up. It's being brought to the light so that it can be healed." That's its purpose. So I always say, love brings up anything unlike itself for the purpose of being healed. So we don't have to be afraid of the negative emotions or the negative thoughts. There really are ways we can transmute them and continue to come back into alliance with ourselves, our higher selves, and our hearts.
I don't know anybody who's found out that they're in the middle of a divorce suddenly, or just gotten a job layoff notice, or what else? Maybe a health diagnosis that just you got the call, but nobody hangs up that phone or gets the pink slip and says, "Wow, this is my opportunity for growth. And I'll go start my new company, go on the vacation I've put off for 10 years." Most of us react. And, my problem is, my situation is, and then we have to go through the whole drama of everything. It's still growth. There's a long road, there's a short path. It's the same with thinking. I've never met anybody who's like, "I'm going to go out today and waste as much energy as I can and think as much as I can." And everyone's correct. If you've ever looked at the news or anything else, all sides, everyone's correct. There's no one who's wasting time with a fake proposition most of the time, or a fake laugh. And yet this happens. Ego itself, thinking itself, can be a waste of energy. It's just our opportunity, though, to realize how to spend more time here, if we can do that, if we can allow for it. I'm going to read a quote to you. I'm going to put an angel up as well in a second, and either get a something you can relate to us from the angel, or a topic that you're like, "Oh yeah, we should talk about this." But here's the quote. Compassion is always a bigger perspective and appreciation for what already is. And that was a Native American chief in 2014 saying that. I like that, because that challenges you. And it means growth never stops. But what is your reaction to compassion is always a bigger perspective and appreciation for what already is?
Yeah. To me, what that says is it's that thing of being with whatever's here. It's that thing that Neale Donald Walsch actually said on The Secret, the movie The Secret: "What we resist persists."
Hmm.
So it's when we're fighting against our circumstances and saying, "I don't want this to be here. I don't want it to be like this. I don't want to get the pink slip." We start going, "Oh my God, I'm going through this divorce. This is the worst thing ever," that we enhance our suffering. And Michael Singer, in his wonderful experiment on surrender, he talks about that in several of his books. But he says suffering is when we want this moment to be anything other than what it is.
Hmm.
So if we bring that sense of compassion to ourselves, I think it's also to the world, but it has to start within us. We have to learn how to befriend and grow in love with ourselves. And so I was even reminded today, just before you and I got on, I interviewed this wonderful woman about her book, Lisa Terhi, about let me say it correctly, the Chiron effect, I believe, was her book, endorsed by the holy the Dalai Lama. Holy Dalai Lama. It's a mouthful. But anyway, as I was reading her book, I was like, oh, interesting. Like these parts came up for me where I was like, oh, I really need to forgive myself in these places. And so, so to look at it, as stuff comes up in awareness for us and these situations in us arise, again, life is messy. So things are going to come up. And so to hold ourselves, our experience in compassion and not to resist it, because the resistance makes it worse. It makes it more painful.
Hmm.
And so it's kind of the acceptance of what is. Like it doesn't mean we like it. It's okay, yeah, I'm going through and I've gone through, a painful divorce. It's okay. And if I accept that, okay, this is what is, again, there's a point of power in the present moment. Then I can do something to either what can I do? It's not that we feel good instantaneously. Again, it's not just a flip of a switch, but what can I do to cultivate well-being within me?
Hmm. Okay, I'm going to put up an angel named Joy. Pink ball light, everyone's ambassador, communicator, just here to help you get out of here to here to allow. Universe is pretty big. Actual photo of a pink ball light, but people see her full on, so try not to think of this as any one way for the seeing. If people at home want to put a hand up and feel the vibe through two screens, you can do it like a fireplace, but feel, warmth or sparkle. What are you getting, Stephanie, from joy as a potential topic? Plus, does she have a quick reminder for all of us?
You know, uh, it's funny because as you hold up joy, I definitely see a face in there. Um, so it's really interesting. And what I was getting, I'm like getting kind of this tingling up through the top of my head, and it was just kind of like relax, relax, because when we're in these tightened bodies and we're afraid, joy can't exist.
Hmm. Now,
That's what I heard.
I'll add love is a constant, but joy is a constant. Harmony is a constant. Grimes, in one of her songs, Butterfly, talks about it's a butterfly who spreads her wings all over the world. I mean, you'd have to be really into a modern alternative pop star or rock star to check out those lyrics. But if love's in everything, and I know Mary, the big Mary, said this, love is in everything. Open your eyes to see love. If it's a constant, it isn't meant to have us punish ourselves to say, whoa, at 7, I used to be connected to everything. I could say, I'm going to climb that tree, and play with the butterflies, run around on the grass, do circles for no reason whatsoever. But at some point, we got to do adulting and situations, drama. We became an expert in something. We're a New York Times bestseller. We're the #1 accountant. Achievements, failures, you name it. But somehow we got away from here. And so if love's in everything, how do we, again, pump the brakes and let our heart do the driving? What's the best way we can try to let go of what we've got up top? Again, is there another last bit of advice on this front?
Well, I would say too, part of when I was hearing Joy say that, it was about relaxing, because we can really bring ourselves not just into our hearts, but into our bodies. So that can be, there's so many ways for us to discharge some of this negative energy, whether it's through movement or dancing or yoga or shaking. When I have a group of women and we meet the first month, or excuse me, Wednesday night of every month, and it's called the Divine Inside. And we start it by shaking. I mean, doing full body shakes and shaking all that energy off. So I think that those are some of the ways that we can keep bringing ourselves into this place of alignment where more love and joy flows through us. And I absolutely agree 100%. Love and joy are constant states of being. They're always there, but we constrict them when we are tight, when we're holding our breath. So as we bring more room within us and get aligned even more so with our bodies, with our hearts, then we allow that love and joy to flow more freely.
So your body and your heart are ready to go. The mind is the only thing that's kind of clutching, saying, hey, don't go there. Don't get more grounded. Don't be more present. Don't have more fun or sparkle or zip. Um, I'll give you another quote and then another angel photo, but this one will be uh, from the Queen of Hawaii back in the day. All things in this world are two. In heaven, there is but one. So if you want to call it non-duality, duality, oneness, suchness, there's a million other expressions, samadhi, satori, ananda. What can you talk to us about? All things in this world are two. In heaven, there is but one. And I wrote down the Queen of Hawaii because I could not pronounce her name.
Okay. The story that comes to mind is when I was interviewing Larry Dossey on the show, and he had just written the book, One Mind.
Hmm.
And what he spoke about, and I don't know that he wrote this in the book, but he spoke about during the interview, was when he was a field medic in Vietnam. And there was a moment where a helicopter crashed through some trees and was upside down and fuel pouring through the cockpit. Now, as a battalion medic, he had told his mother, I will not be in harm's way. I will always be, working on soldiers. I'm not going to go, off into the battlefield. And yet when that helicopter crashed, he said there wasn't a moment of thinking. There was no thought. He ran directly towards it, even though it could have exploded very easily, and cut the pilot out and saved his life. Now, he said it took him a couple years to deal with it. It became kind of almost like a trauma, almost like a PTSD of like, why did I do that? Why would I run towards danger? And through his research found there's actually a mechanism within us. And for me, I would call it a God spark that's within us, that in those moments, there is no separation. And that the person that we are rescuing is actually ourselves. So I guess, is that in response to your question? I hope that
it works. I like it. That was a good one. I'll put up an angel named Charlotte. She's everybody's favorite school teacher from childhood with words meant to help you expand. So think Mrs. Johansson, the one that was nice, not Mrs. Bear, who got you in trouble. Okay, here's Charlotte. Again, at home, if you want to put a hand up, you can feel through two screens. It doesn't matter if you don't want to put a hand up. You can just feel her vibe come through. Think of her as a Santa Fe, mid-40s, 50-year-old teacher. And what are you getting from her that you can share out loud?
Interesting. Patience.
Awesome. And I'll do an angel named Lucy, who is all about patience, to follow up on that. Maybe Lucy, who is patience, the vibration of patience, maybe she can give a quick reminder to us all about how to cultivate that more. Because for anything you're going to do in life, patience is actually a key ingredient.
Yeah, like in holding hands with trust, trusting that process.
Nice.
That we're all evolving, we're all growing, we're all healing.
I'll do Geronimo for you. He's a favorite for everybody. Native American chief, unconditional love, action, 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 dry wit, humor, like a lightning bolt or a Marine Corps drill sergeant. He speaks like this, not formal, proper yes, no, but yeah, nah, duh. You already know the answer, or just do it. The time is now. Those are some of his favorite expressions. But here's older Geronimo, and people should be able to feel him hardcore. A lot of people watching are intuitive. And what's he got for a lightning bolt reminder for us all?
It's interesting. I just got a very warm feeling in my belly, and it was just a yes.
Like checking the box to all that we were just talking about.
Yeah. Yeah. And like trusting that inner yes, that inner knowingness.
And Stephanie, if you want to close your eyes and have them bring one of those 50 sacred smells to you, tobacco, sweetgrass, juniper, leather, sage, pine, cedar, you get the idea. Douglas fir. What are you getting in the air? And if you breathe, breathe, breathe at home, people, through the mouth, 1 millimeter open is an extra unofficial way to get help. I forgot to tell you the one way I always suggest, the only structure I've got. Ask angels, Geronimo, your relatives to make it nice, help you out of your head, into your heart, to smell the sage earlier in the show, to see light, to hear angels' response, to just trust more, be out of your head, into your heart. Okay, what's Geronimo bringing you for a sacred smell around you? What are you getting, Stephanie James?
I'm getting a cedar smell.
Yay. Come back when you're ready. Okay. What more can you tell us? Aren't you working on a variety of projects right now? Is there any hint you can at least give us? You don't have to tell us anything specific, but what are you super excited about in the last few weeks that has come along? Can you give us a first tiny hint, even if we're talking 2025 and beyond?
Yes, I think one of the exciting things for me is that I have a new film series that's going to be coming out. It's called Ignited. It's going to be it's actually going to be different seasons. Our first season of Ignited is going to be called Becoming Fierce, which was the name of my book, where we and an amazing film crew from Film Nest Studios in Santa Fe. We're in Estes Park, 20 women, 6 international thought leaders, 3 days of profound transformation, all caught on film. So that is going to be a 6-part series. The Becoming Fierce under Ignited. So look ahead for that. And my new book that's going to be coming out that I've been writing and has been definitely inspired, divinely inspired. And I will have to say Neale Donald Walsch was the catalyst for that when I interviewed him. And he said, this is just 2 weeks ago, said, you're going to write a new book. Here's the title.
And you've already cranked out considerable material, have you not?
Yeah. Over 20,000 words as of this morning.
2 weeks.
It's been
And so
2 weeks. So
I think it's
flowing.
yeah, aptly named Divinely Inspired. Okay, I'll do one more figure for you. An angel named Isabel, and she's all about inner calm. She might have picked tranquility as her word, but she's inner calm. You can let this photo move a little. We know that static historical figures. First, I'll just do Audrey Hepburn with your permission because I've got it right here. We know photos can't move, wink, smile, but even guests on this show have had her wink, smile, nod, shoulder waggle, eyebrow goes up. Let us know when that happens. But meanwhile, anybody at home wants to catch a perfume out of France. If you could get, and don't forget, folks at home, to breathe, 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 be in your heart. Let her do her job, and I'll guilt all the good Americans watching, which is just, hey, get out of your own way, get out of your head into your heart. Let her do her job. Why not? Here are some advice at home if you've got a personal matter. Hear a little whisper. It'll sound like your voice the second you let go. Hear her voice. Stephanie, what's she got for a reminder for us all? Again, we're all trying to do the right thing and, have a little more fun, help others, help ourselves. What's her advice?
Her word actually is purity. That no matter what circumstances we've gone through, that we still have that purity that is our soul, that is our spark, that is a pure love that resides within us.
Beautiful. That ball got knocked out of the park and the leather got knocked off the ball. Okay, here's Isabel. Now, it's a black and white photo. It happens to be an Italian actress from like the 50s, 60s, but let's not tell anybody that. Let her eyes come more alive, an extra smile, even though we know photographs can't move. People should feel the sizzle of this one, even though she's about the inner calm thing. You should feel it all over, like you're a house getting feng shuied. This is Isabel, Isabel. And you can let her eyes come more alive, sparkly. You should almost feel like a solar flare is hitting you of love. And first, are you feeling it from Isabel, Stephanie?
Oh yeah. I mean, and love was the exact first thing that I felt.
Awesome. And then if you want, close your eyes, have a little private moment for 4 seconds. And let her bring you something again. A reminder at home, breathe, 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 let go. If you need to make a fist and then open it, that's the act of letting go from out of your brain into your heart. It's like a light switch on a wall. Flip it, bam. No try, Yoda. Always try. Do whatever you got to do to get to the heart. And then if you want to come back and use the photo, what does she have as a reminder of how it's right here, right now?
I just heard her say, leap, joy, dance. It is all love.
You can't beat that. Okay, what do you have for us as sort of a final bit to wrap it up? I'll buy time, though, with a quote from Archangel Uriel. If more people would listen, less conflict would arise in any given situation.
Beautiful. You know, what came to me is how essential, again, each person's healing is, and their knowingness that, we are like nature. Like nature doesn't have to think to heal. If the tree, there's a natural intelligence within it. If a tree loses a limb, it gets this salve that comes right over it. So we're like that tree. Our wounds are constantly moving towards healing. So to trust that we're a part of that nature. And gosh, I had it dropped in right when you said that, and now it's leaving me.
That's okay. I can buy
Oh,
time.
but here it is. No, here it
Good.
is. And just saying that made me think. And so that's why this is so essential that we allow ourselves to continue to be these clear conduits, because we really, each one of us, are essential threads in this tapestry of humanity. And it's all of our lights together, together we can illuminate the world.
And I'll try to add something that I don't think anyone on any show ever in the history of spirituality has ever said. I'm going to throw a spiritual hand grenade. And this is straight from Angels, from my little Listening to Angels book, written by Angels. I saw balls of light as I was typing. It's been #2 twice. I don't know if many people can brag about that either. But the quote is, "You can be happy now in this very moment for no reason whatsoever." And that is the rub. That is the ultimate challenge. Because the second the word but comes up, you're meeting your ego, you're thinking, and what you know, which isn't real. It's real. It's painful. It's real painful. But it doesn't have to be that way. And that's what I think Stephanie's been talking about this whole time. The more you can get into your heart, the more you're allowing the fluidity of a situation, or the resolution of it even. Stephanie, can you take us there about how, I got it, the Einstein quote, the consciousness that says my problem is, my situation is, my drama is, this is real, I've got $2 in my bank account, is not the same consciousness that allows you to grow from the situation, and now you have $1,000 coming in a day. That wasn't his quote exactly, but it was pretty close. Can you talk to us about this transformation we almost have to go through back to the way we were when we started out in this lifetime?
Yeah, and it's one of the things that actually Neale Donald Walsch said to me during our interview. He was talking about workshops that he does, and he says, I tell people they have to drop their story, and they don't get it. And I think, though, that there's so much power in those words, that if we drop our story, and I believe it's been my journey as well, to go back to that little girl state, that little girl, I mean, that I experienced myself as pure love as a little girl. I remember it so clearly because it's so alive within me. I was in love with all of nature and animals, and I could just lay out in the grass and look at the sky for hours and just be entranced. Like you said, I mean, this is available to all of us at all the time. And so it's not about I have to achieve anything. I've got to do something. It's our beingness, and so that's that innocent, childlike, beautiful state that's always within us. It still resides within us.
Well, because you mentioned animals, I'm going to stick one more photo. It's the tiger on the wall behind me. He's the figure from India. The Divine Mother rides on him, Durga as well. He's not a spirit animal. He's deity like, unconditional love, action, action, action. He's on everyone's team. And so you can hear his voice. If you want to put your hand out in the room, you can feel the soft fur, but with a final reminder that you can just take action in any little moment, whether it's a cup of tea, a smile, a breath, hug a tree, getting out in nature, doing something to just break the chain of thinking. And Stephanie, I'll let you run with this one any which way with the kitty that's up on the screen. We got 3 screens here, folks. You can smell a, we'll say, perfumed or shampooed up tiger instead of the musky. You can get the highest smell of India, the highest vibration of jungle from India if you wish. You can even hear a roar of a tiger in the distance. But what are you getting, Stephanie, as a final heave ho for all of us?
Yeah, it's that whole thing I said about the power is in the present moment. So the point of power is in the present moment, and it's to act. As we hear the divine calling, or if we get caught in some kind of thought conditioning, again, the point of power is in the present moment, and we can change the channel. It's like when I get into the car, if all of a sudden screamo music started coming on, I could, in that moment, have the power to change the channel. I'm going to tune into something else that resonates with my heart and my being. We all have the power to do that in each moment.
Beautiful. Stephanie James, incredible having you on. Folks at home, now's the time to hit that like button, share this, send it to someone, send it to yourself if you have to. Comment, what did you like? What did you resonate with? Just what was your favorite mantra or line? What was your favorite photo? Make it a competition between the tiger and Audrey Hepburn. Put something. Way too many people. We've had almost 500,000 visitors to this channel. And I swear 99.8% are sneaking in, checking stuff out, maybe catching the scent of sage, maybe listening to an angel. Play that stuff back if you need extra help, but go ahead and type something. It's okay. I take out all the bad comments, so you're okay. Just put something nice in. You're giving other people a sense of bravery that they can share as well. Final act, like a concert, I'm going to say thank you to Stephanie James. I'm lighting a Bic lighter. If people want to see extra light around the lighter, we know it's impossible to see extra light. There's just the usual gold, orange, yellow, and the clear below that, and a normal lighter that I will have to shut off soon. Stephanie, would you mind asking your crew, angels, your relatives, Jerry, Mary, Jesus, Muhammad, Buddha, before I stutter, to bring in extra light around the lighter and tell us, what are you seeing?
I am seeing lots of different colors of light, but there's an orange and a purple. Now I'm losing light because you're putting it down.
Sorry, I don't
There
even
it
know
is.
when I'm on screen or not, so I'm at
There it is. There it is.
something more
Yeah.
than the Bic lighter, correct?
Oh yeah, absolutely.
And that's the reminder, is there's always something more in each moment. You might have to look for it or allow for it, and that's what thinking doesn't want you to do. So I tried to make a last minute spontaneous metaphor out of this. Stephanie James, people can find you at stephaniejames.world, right?
That's it.
Yeah.
StephanieJames.world.
Okay, well, I am so enthusiastic or enthused to have met you, to have you on this show. I'd love for you to come back in the future in any way that you see fit. And I have to thank you again for doing what you do. We look forward to seeing your films, your books in the future. Stephanie James in Colorado, thank you so much for being on Angels, Positivity, and Love.
Thank you, Michael. Such a joy to be here.